Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I'm joined by Junior of the Minnesota Gophers hockey team, and Emily Oden. Welcome to the podcast, Emily, and thank you so much for coming on. How's everything going?
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. Everything's going well over here.
That's good to hear. And obviously, your team did not make the national tournament this year. What was your reaction to that decision?
Um, it was extremely disappointing, especially just kind of going through everything we went through this year with COVID protocols and the amount of tests we went through and kind of just the amount of sacrifices we had to make this year with limiting how much we were able to see our family or go home or kind of that stuff. And so I think that our team just faced a lot of adversity this year, and it was really tough to not make that tournament because we worked so hard and we were a top 5 team all year. And so I think we picked a hard schedule, one of the harder schedules out of probably anyone, and we almost got we just didn't get rewarded for that, and so it was extremely disappointing.
Did you guys think you were going to make the tournament after the WCHA playoffs? And I guess, what was the team's reaction to that news, and how did you guys try to deal with it?
Well, obviously we didn't win our tournament, and so there's always a chance that you might not make it. And so we had that in the back of our minds, and so we were obviously hoping to make it, and we thought that we put ourselves in a good enough position that we could make it. But at the same time, there's teams in the East Coast that we didn't get to face or play against, and so when we found out that some teams got in over us, we were extremely disappointed because we definitely thought that we should have had a spot.
Now, how are you going to use this moment to help you guys for next year as motivation?
Yeah, well, we've already started our spring training, and so I think that we've already seen a lot of that, just motivation that everyone wants to get better now, and we always work hard in the off season. So I think that this just gives us an extra motivation to want to better our individual game, so then we can come back in the fall and just um, give everything we got to this next season.
Now, what are your plans for the off season, and what do you hope to work on for your game?
Um, I'll be living on campus, working out in our weight room, and then probably skating 4 times a week, 4 or 5. And a lot of the off season is all about skills for me personally, I guess, because I wouldn't say I'm like the most skilled player. And so I think that just working on my shot and my stick handling, kind of those type of skills, I think is really big for me individually.
Yeah, definitely. And you're obviously going to be a senior next year. What type of leadership do you hope to bring to the team, especially potentially, having a letter on your jersey?
Yeah, I just think I'm someone that leads by example a little bit more than vocally, and so I think that just continuing to work hard, and especially in the off season, and just show up to those early skates that we do, and just kind of work hard and hold other people accountable, and make sure everyone's getting in the weight room and getting on the ice. So
Well, in the WCHA tournament, I want to talk a little bit about the game you played against Wisconsin. You unfortunately lost in that game. What did you take away from that game overall?
that was a that was a tough loss because we've played them so many times this year, and so we know what we were kind of facing, and we played so well, and I just don't think the bounces were going our way. I wouldn't say we played bad that game. We gave it everything we had because we knew that our season was on the line, and we needed to win that game if we could secure a spot in the tournament. And so obviously we didn't secure a spot in that tournament. And so I think that if we would have won that game, it would have been a game changer, and we would have been in that tournament, and we would have had a shot at going far in the tournament. So obviously that's disappointing because we didn't even end up making the tournament.
Yeah, definitely. And during the regular season, the Gophers were consistently ranked as a top 5 team in the country, like you just mentioned earlier. How does the team try to maintain that success throughout the regular season? And is there any pressure that comes with that?
Um, I wouldn't say necessarily pressure of keeping it. I just think that we're a team that just takes one game at a time, and so just focusing on the next series, whether it's Wisconsin, Mankato, St. Cloud, a non-conference opponent, we just we dial in that week, and we have themes for the week, and we focus on that those games and not games down the line. And so we're not thinking, obviously the ultimate goal is to hang a banner and win a national championship or WCHA championship, but just by winning the next series is what we take into account and focus on each week.
Yeah, and thinking about this past season, what do you think was the biggest improvement you made to your game?
Um, as an upperclassman, kind of one of my things going into this year was just working on consistency. And so I think that as an underclassman, I was pretty inconsistent with my play. And obviously, we played 2 games a weekend. And so I think that some games I would have one really good game and then maybe one really bad game. And so I think that just being consistent in all zones of the ice as well. So being consistent defensively and offensively, being consistent with getting shots on net and just kind of that stuff I've been working on more. And so I think that that's something I need to take into next year as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you obviously didn't play in front of any fans this year as well. Talk about that. And was it weird not playing in front of a crowd? And how did you adjust to that?
Um, yeah, it was a little different, obviously. It's fun to have the band there and the music and stuff like that. But once you're in the game, you kind of dial in and um, it's not too different. Obviously, we're allowed to have some parents there, so I'd look up and it's pretty easy to find my mom and dad. So that's nice having them there at least. But it was different, especially because coming from Minnesota, we do pack our rink, so it's kind of sad. But hopefully, we can have them in the fall.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Now, something else that was introduced to college hockey this year was 3-on-3 overtime. What was that like for yourself, being kind of an offensive player and having more space on the ice and having more opportunities for offensive chances?
Yeah, it's definitely very different. And so we would practice that and practice and kind of there's a little strategy to it with like when you want to change or just keeping possession of the puck. So it's definitely a whole different ball game. And so just kind of adjusting to that was a little weird, but it was kind of fun. It's a little different. And so obviously the fast players have a little bit of an advantage, but there's a lot of ice to play with.
Definitely. And I heard talking to other college hockey players that you have to be a little more defensively minded in those 3-on-3 overtime situations because if you make one little defensive mistake, it can cause an odd man rush. Is that something you realized when you were part of them?
Yes, 100%. And it's a little more man on coverage because if you leave someone open, I mean, there's so much ice to play with. And so those odd man rushes are crucial. And so I think that as soon as you lose possession, then you either got to find someone or get back. But it's definitely tough.
Definitely. And another thing about the 3-on-3 overtime was possession of the puck is like the main thing when you're in those situations. How do you work on trying to keep possession of the puck, especially in the offensive zone, so you can limit the other team's changes for different lines?
Yeah. I think obviously you got to keep possession. So in the offensive zone, you got to get moving around and try and get someone open. Obviously, the other team is trying to play the man on coverage, and so I think moving your feet and getting open and not taking like a bad angle shot that you could lose possession from. Also, with changes, you got to talk to each other because if 2 people want to get off the ice, one person's got to just take the puck back and keep possession of it and wait for 2 fresh legs to get out there.
Now, you were obviously an upperclassman this year. What'd you try to do to help the freshmen transition into college hockey, especially since this was such an unusual year and they didn't get that kind of normal freshman year like you did?
Yeah, it was definitely tough, especially because for us, we came in the summer, and so we were able to kind of get used to lifts and the campus like in the summer, and so I think that they kind of came in and got thrown into everything, and so just kind of helping them through it and just kind of giving them advice and just making sure that they're heard and that we're here to help them instead of just throw them in the deep end.
Yeah, definitely. Talk about the impact that the freshmen made to the team this year, especially players like Abby Murphy and Josie Dunn, who really stood out to many fans of the Gophers.
Yeah, they were great. They Murph plays with a lot of speed and she's very skilled, and Josie is a good skater and she's just strong on the puck and she sees the ice well, and so they both had their different style of plays, and they both benefited our team greatly. They had some big goals and big games. Josie put some away against Wisconsin, and Murph just consistent goal scorer, and so they were a great addition to our team. And I can't wait to see how their game continues to improve.
Now, something else that happened this year in college hockey was the constant changes of schedule that happened. How'd you deal with all those schedule changes that happened, and what was the key for maintaining flexibility for this year?
Yeah, we really focused on just kind of um, the next day. Like, if we could practice tomorrow, we're going to focus on that. And if our game gets canceled, then hopefully we can reschedule it, or we focus on the weekend after that. But our team actually didn't have any cases during this season. I think we had one at the very end. But so we never had to cancel a season or a series this season, which was really big for us. But we had a couple of our weekends get canceled versus Duluth and Wisconsin, and I think that's it. But other than that, it wasn't too big of a deal.
Now, something else I realized about your game watching your team play this year was how good you were on face-offs. Is there anything in particular you work on in practices to help your face-offs?
Not in particular. We don't really work on face-offs too much in practice, but I got thrown in center last year, and I would just remember coach being like, "You play center in high school?" And I was like, uh, I can play. I'll figure it out." And immediately I was like, "Oh, I like the face-offs because I'm so competitive, and so it's just an extra thing that I can be competitive with." And so I take pride in face-offs a lot, and I like to look at my percentages of wins and losses and kind of compare that. So it's definitely something I focus on, but I don't necessarily practice it as much just because it's hard to, I guess, simulate because every center is different in the way they take draws.
Yeah, and how did you transition from being a winger to a centerman in college?
One of my teammates, um, the first game, Amy Potomac, I go, "Dude, I don't even know how to play center," and she goes, "Just just chase the puck around in the D zone." And I was like, "All right, I'm on it." But no, um, I don't know. I kind of just talked with the coaches, and they kind of gave me some pointers about just being low in the D zone and supporting the D. The biggest thing is just being able to communicate with them to make sure that we have two on the puck and then one in front of the net. And so um, it wasn't too big of an adjustment. It's definitely a little more tiring than wing, but it's been a good adjustment.
Yeah, definitely. And a new rule that was made in college hockey this year was the face-off rule. Like after two warnings, you get thrown out. How did you adjust to that new rule?
I thought it would be a lot more. Um, I thought we'd see it a lot more, but it didn't end up being a problem. I would get a warning or two, but I never got thrown in the box for that. But I get a lot of warnings because I
Mhm.
like to I don't know, I like to be ready and kind of cheat if I can. So
Yeah, definitely. Well, now I want to transition a little bit and talk about before your college hockey career. You're from Edina, Minnesota. How did you start playing hockey and falling in love with the sport, especially in an area where hockey is basically everything?
yeah, I actually grew up in Isani, Cambridge area, so like an hour north of Edina, and so hockey wasn't too big there, but my older brother wanted to play, so he started, and we would always skate on our pond. But I would always go to his games, and when I was little, and they didn't have many younger teams. They didn't have mites or anything, so the youngest team there was the U8 team, and I was 4 years old, so I just kind of got thrown on the team with a bunch of 8-year-olds, but I loved it, so I just kept going, and I loved the challenge. And then when I moved down to Edina, obviously it's a huge hockey area, and so there's a lot more opportunity and a lot more skilled players that I could benefit from playing with.
Definitely. And who was your favorite player growing up?
Oh man, well I love the Wild, just watching them, but favorite player was probably Sid Crosby. I mean, he's just all around good player. And I'd say growing up, that was probably my favorite, but now I love Nathan McKinnon.
Definitely. I guess when you did you see Sidney Crosby attempt to do the Michigan a few months back?
Yes, I
And what was
did.
your reaction to that?
I I love that move, and so I love when I see on NHL Network just, like, all the different people who've attempted it, like, um, but I love like, doing it in practice kind of as a just practicing it, but it's a pretty cool move, and it's cool when it works out for people.
Definitely. Are you ever gonna try to do it in a game if you have the opportunity?
I probably cannot. Maybe if my stick was all waxed up, maybe, but,
Yeah,
probably not. I'm not I wouldn't say I'm as crafty as some people that might try it.
definitely. Well, if you ever get the chance to do it, that'll be such a cool move, and it'll definitely be blowing up the internet if you ever did it in a game. That'll be super cool to see.
Yeah, that would be awesome, but I don't know if I'll ever get there.
We just have to wait and see. You still have a few more years in college hockey, so who knows? Now, you played for your high school in Edina. What was your experience like there? And just talk about getting to play with some amazing college hockey players like Taylor Williamson, who went to Minnesota as well.
Yeah, so I played with Taylor, we played on a line together, and she was extremely skilled, and she would just go around everyone and her pull moves, and so she was really fun to play with, and she's a great person off the ice as well, so we get along really well. And then
Definitely.
also, I was gonna say, playing with like Grace Bolby and Anna Klein, obviously they're two top end players in the WCHA, so it's kind of fun to face them, but it's never fun losing to them since they're my old teammates.
Definitely, I agree with you on that. And you also got to get coached under Sammy Reber. What was it like getting to play under her, especially since she played college hockey with Harvard and had a lot of success?
Yeah, speaking for everyone, but I think that we all really liked her, and she knows what she's talking about, and she's young, and she's relatable, and she kind of gets it, and so I think she made the hard days easier, and she made us want to be better, and she kind of showed us just like how to be a leader, and like she would lead by example, but also was a very vocal leader, and she was great for the program.
Now, you won back-to-back state titles in your junior and senior year in high school. What was it like to win those titles for your high school, and what emotions were you feeling after those big wins?
Those were some good wins because the 2 years before that, we lost in the semis to go to the championship, and so being able to win that first year was just incredible, and then being able to do it a second time was, uh, just unbelievable, and we had such a good group of girls, and so some of them are still my best friends today, and so I think that that was definitely one of my favorite sports memories was going back to back.
Definitely. And what's it like being a player in the Minnesota high school hockey scene and just the entire atmosphere you're a part of because you get to play at the XL Center for the state tournament? And being from the East Coast, it's kind of hard to understand what the Minnesota high school hockey scene is like.
Yeah, it's first off, playing at the XL Center is awesome because it's where the Wild play, and I grew up going to games there, and so it's kind of cool with the bright lights and the stands and everything. So that's pretty exciting. And then um, just being part of the state tournament, like you said, um, high school hockey is so big in the state of Minnesota, and so just being able to do that, you have a big audience and everyone's kind of watching, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, especially being such a young of an age and going to the locker rooms and being in the benches and doing that whole setup. I guess like what's your favorite off ice memory being in the state tournament?
Oh man, there's so many. Um, Probably just the like getting ready for games. We would stay at a hotel close, and then we'd end up going to like Starbucks beforehand, and then get dropped off, and we'd play some soccer beforehand, and just kind of getting ready, taping the stick, playing the music in the locker room. Those are definitely the favorite memories.
Is it weird to talk to people like myself and some of your teammates who aren't from Minnesota just about that high school hockey scene?
Yeah, some of my teammates now don't understand because they're from like different states, and they're like they don't understand that high school hockey is so big. Like, because where they come from, they all play like AAA hockey, and so um, they definitely think it's super cool that Minnesota hockey is a little different in that way. That high school hockey is like has skilled players come out of it, and So yeah, but they get it.
Now, doing research on yourself, there was a video that was made for the state tournament where you did Zamboni karaoke. I gotta get your reaction on that video, and have you ever watched it? Because I thought it was awesome.
No, I try and keep that one hidden. Man, that that's one of the more embarrassing things I've done. But it's funny. I've watched it once, but it was pretty painful. It was a fun experience though.
Yeah, it definitely looks like you guys were having fun. I just saw that and I was like, I have to ask her about it because I bet you she definitely remembers it for sure.
Oh yeah, that's not something I'll forget. It was pretty funny.
Now, how did your time in Edina help prepare you for college hockey with the Gophers?
Obviously, like you mentioned, I had Sammy Reaver, and then before that, I had Laura Slominski and Dean Williamson. And so I was coached by three unbelievable coaches, and I know it's kind of rare sometimes, and at that age, like high school, and so they helped a great amount. And then also um, playing with skilled players, like going against like Grace Bowlby in practice every day, and just playing with people that are high end players, that definitely helped.
Yeah, and you were also a Miss Hockey semi-finalist in 2018. What did being considered for that award mean to you?
That was a pretty cool thing, especially because as we've been talking about how big high school hockey is in Minnesota, and so being up for that award was really special, and it was a really big honor, I guess.
Definitely, and Taylor Heisey won the award that year, and now she's your teammate with the Gophers. Was it cool to play with someone who's obviously won that award?
Yeah, we've had a few. I know Taylor Williamson won it, and then we had Grace Sumwinkle, Taylor Heisey, Madeline Wethington, and so we have a lot that have won it, and so it's pretty cool. And um, I'm glad that someone like Taylor Heisey won it because now I'm with her at the U, and she's an unbelievable player.
Now, you had some international experience as well before you went with the Gophers. You won 2 gold medals for Team USA, under 18 team. What was it like being a part of those tournaments and representing your country and competing in that, competing against those players in that type of competition?
That was an unbelievable experience. It was really cool to be able to represent the U.S. and play on that team. And there's nothing like the battle between Wisconsin and the U.S. Even at that age, it was unbelievable because it's the first time I really played against like Canadians, and so you see like their style is a little different, but it's a hard fought battle and it's a really physical game. And being able to come away with two golds was really special. And being able to play in different countries was another thing that just adds to the experience.
Definitely, and, where do you keep those medals now, and what do they mean to you?
I have a little box at my house with just kind of like a memory box where I have my state medals and then my gold medals and a few other things. And so I keep those safe. I don't pull them out too much, but they're pretty special.
That's awesome, and now I wanna talk about your recruitment process. What was that like for yourself, and why'd you go to Minnesota at the end of the day?
Growing up in Minnesota, every little girl dreams of playing for the Gophers, and we'd come to so many games, and I'd be watching the like, oh my god, so many of the alumni, and I just want to be just like them. And so as I continued to get older, I realized that this dream could become a reality. And so once I started talking to colleges, I realized that it was an opportunity, and it was an opportunity that was too good to pass up. It's a dream to play here, and so um, when the opportunity presented itself, I knew that there's nowhere else I'd rather go.
Definitely, definitely. What was the biggest adjustment you had to make to college hockey?
Um, Probably the speed. In high school, I was always a pretty good skater, but the speed is so different. I went from being one of the faster people on my team to just kind of like middle now, and everyone is just so fast and skilled, and the pace at which everything happens is so fast. With just like turnovers, you got to get back to the D zone and going up the ice with the rushes, and so definitely the speed of college hockey compared to high school.
Yeah, definitely. And how'd you adjust to the mental side of the game? Because you're obviously making quicker decisions with the puck.
I think just the more games I played, the more I started to figure it out. I still think I'm figuring it out, but um, just practice every day. We Our own team is probably our best competition, or some of our best competition by playing against that, like Grace Sumwinkle, Emily Brown, Taylor Heisey, some of those people. And so by playing against each other every day, that helps with it.
Now, in your first year with the Gophers, you lost to Wisconsin in the WCHA finals. Regardless of that, talk about playing in your first WCHA playoffs and what did you take away from that experience?
That was the first like tournament that we were able to, or the first playoff tournament that I obviously experienced. And so um, everything started to get intense, ramped up a bit. And so um, that tournament was awesome because we had a chance to obviously hang another banner because we won the regular season that year. And so playing that game was really intense, and being able to hang a banner, like I mentioned, but losing that game was pretty tough. But we put ourselves in a good enough position that year to still get the number two seed.
Yeah, and you got to play in your first national tournament that same year. What was that experience like for you? And talk about playing in the national championship game as well. And just what did you take away from that whole experience?
That experience was awesome. Being able to go there, we played at Quinnipiac, and the rink was awesome. It was just a really cool with going to the banquet, and then you see the Miss Hockey banquet. You got the locker room all set up, and the the stands are packed. It's high pressure, high intensity. It was really awesome, but obviously that game didn't work out too well for us. So it was a hard one to lose.
Definitely. And last year, you were not able to participate in the national tournament due to the pandemic. How did not playing in that tournament last year help as motivation for the regular season this past year?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough because we had such a good season last year, but it was extremely tough because the seniors weren't allowed to obviously get that year back. And so I felt for them, especially since we had six of them. And so I felt for them really bad. And they never got the chance to win a national championship. And so that year we definitely could have, I think. And so it was hard to swallow. But coming back this year, we wanted to get right back there, but obviously it didn't work out.
Yeah, and speaking of one of the seniors, you got to put Sarah Potomac. What was it like being her teammate? And talk about what she is like off and on the ice as well. Just because I've had the chance to meet her before, she's one of the nicest people I've ever met.
Yeah, Sarah's super nice, and she's a little quirky and goofy and likes to have fun off the ice. And on the ice, she's extremely intense. And so she's fast, skilled, and she's pretty quick and can get around people. And she's a very smart player. She makes good plays and sees the ice well.
Yeah, definitely. Is it cool having a pair of siblings on the team? Because obviously her sister Amy Potomac played with her as well during your time with the Gophers.
Yeah, it is pretty cool because you can hear them kind of bicker, but then they also get along so well, and they're like best friends. And they're extremely different people, and so they're different players too, and so it's kind of cool to see.
Definitely. Well, we're now in the non-hockey segment of the podcast where I ask you some non-hockey questions. My first question to you is, what music do you like to listen to?
Country, I'm a big
That's
country gal, and so I like just driving down the road in the summer with the windows down, playing some country on the boat, everything.
that's awesome. Who's your go-to artist? Because I'm a big Thomas Rhett fan myself.
I like Thomas Rhett. I love Kenny Chesney. I saw him in concert a few times. Old Dominion. Um, the list goes on. I don't know. I kind of like everyone.
Are you more of an old school country fan or a new school country fan?
Probably old school.
Nice. That's awesome. Now, what is your biggest pet peeve?
Um, probably when there's like dishes left in the sink, or when people don't clean up after themselves. I'm kind of a clean freak, and
Mhm.
so I I'd say that's one of them. Or when people chew with their mouth open. That's another one.
Definitely, I can agree with you on that. I'm definitely guilty on leaving dishes in the sink sometimes dirty, so I apologize for that. But I guess my biggest pet peeve will probably be people who don't cover their mouths when they sneeze, especially now. It's pretty disgusting.
Yeah, especially during COVID. That's
Mhm.
one you don't want to be near.
Definitely, I agree with you on that. Now, if you could have lunch with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
Initially, I thought of like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, just kind of like the big names. And then I kind of thought about this question a little bit longer. And I came up with Jeff Probst. Do you
Hmm.
know who that is?
I do not.
He's a host for Survivor, the TV show.
Okay.
Have you seen Survivor?
I've heard of it. I've never seen an episode, believe it or not.
There's 40, there's going to be a 40 for 40, 41 seasons now coming out this summer. And so I haven't seen all of them, but I'm pretty into it, and I would love to have lunch with him and just kind of hear some stories because he's been there for 40 years now, and so I'm sure he'd have some good stories and just kind of listen to him and oh
Would you ever compete in that show after college hockey?
yeah, I joke around with my coach. I saw like the audition thing, and I was just like, oh, I'm gonna audition, won't be back next year, just kind of joking around with him and because he's seen the show, and so
Mhm.
but I wanna compete in it after college, but hopefully it's still going.
Definitely. I think it still will definitely still be going, especially since it's been going 40 years strong. Like, I don't think it would cancel after 2 or 3 years from now.
No, I hope not, 'cause I wanna get on there and hopefully I can make an audition tape good enough to get picked.
Definitely. Well, if you ever make it on, I'll definitely be rooting for you, and I'll remember this interview. Like, I interviewed the winner of Survivor, and that'll be a cool experience for myself.
Oh, the winner.
Mhm.
Alright, that's a little far-fetched, but that'd be pretty cool.
Definitely. Now, speaking of some of your teammates, who's the funniest teammate you have at Minnesota?
We got a lot of funny characters. Chris Hengler's probably one of the funniest people. Um, I can rattle off a lot of names, but I think I'll stick with Chrislyn. She's pretty witty and she's definitely herself around us. And it's pretty funny.
Now, you obviously have the best style on the team, but besides yourself, who has the best style on the team?
Well, I'm flattered. Olivia King's got good style. Lauren Bench has good style. Um, Grace Sumwinkle likes her designer items.
Hmm. Is it
So we
some
got
of the
a
goalies? Is it some of the goalies that makes them have good style?
few. Uh, I don't know. I didn't even think about that. I guess I do have two goalies listed in there, but I guess.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely I love the goalies. They're super awesome people just because they have such a different position compared to the rest of the team. So they always have like a different perspective on things, which I find interesting to hear about.
Yeah, they got their weird quirks to
Mhm.
them.
Definitely, definitely. Now back to some hockey questions. Now, my first one is what should be done to help grow women's hockey since you've been involved with it for most of your life?
Yeah, I think just making it accessible and just kind of giving younger children the opportunity. Like I mentioned, I grew up in Isani, and the youngest team for girls was the 8U team. And so a lot of people didn't get started until they were 8 years old or a little bit older. And so, and like Minnesota's such a big hockey state where it is accessible, but you look at states like down south or out west, like there's not much hockey there. And so I think that just kind of growing in different areas and kind of getting it out there that'll definitely help.
Definitely. And what advice would you give younger players who are trying to pursue a career in college hockey?
Um, Obviously it takes a lot of hard work, but as soon as it becomes a chore, um, it kind of takes that fun aspect out of it. And so I think just enjoying the process and enjoying the game, and just always staying competitive with it because that's when it gets fun. And I think mixing things up because it can get a little boring going to practice or working on like skills every day. And so I think that mixing things up by playing other sports or like some of my teammates since the season has ended, we've been playing a lot of tennis and volleyball. And so I think mixing things up like that just kind of, um and I think it's good to just, like, do workouts that are outside of the sport, playing other sports, because as soon as, like I mentioned, it becomes more than a game and it's a chore to do, then it's not gonna be fun anymore, and so I'm all about the fun and competitive side of it, and so I think that that's really important to just always have fun with it.
Definitely. Did you play any other sports in high school besides hockey?
Not in high school, but growing up until 8th grade, I played volleyball and softball.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I played baseball too. And I think I agree with you. It helps you not get burnt out. I think that's an important thing because once you get burnt out, it doesn't become as fun. And I think that's not what when you go to hockey, you play to have fun. And when you're not having fun, it's definitely not a good not a good mindset to have.
Yeah, I agree, and we've been trying to get into golf as well, but, golf's kind of a frustrating game, so
Yeah,
we gotta
no,
figure
my
that out.
putter is brutal. I need to work on that this summer.
Yeah, I can drive, and that's my short games where I need the work.
Yeah, no, I think my chipper is decent. It's just the putting. I have like the yips in my head where I just can't hit it in the hole. So it's like I'm like five. It's like it takes me like 5 shots just to get it to the putt, which is probably the toughest part about my game.
Yeah, I don't think golf is ever gonna get easier.
Definitely not. But you watch those guys on the tour, and it's like they make it look easy, especially the short game, like you mentioned. Like it's like 3 shots and they're already out, which is pretty cool to see.
Oh, it's insane.
Definitely. Well, is there any shout outs you like to give to any of your teammates, or friends, or family members?
Um, I guess shout out mom
Mhm.
and Katie Skaya,
We
my
had her on the
dog.
podcast too.
I know, I was talking to her beforehand, so I told her I'd give her a shout out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Emily, for coming on the podcast and talking about your athletic achievements with Edina and the Gophers. It means a lot to me. I wish you all the best for the off season. Stay safe, and I just want to let you know that you're a great player, but you're an even better person off the ice. So it means a lot to come on the podcast. And I just want to let you know that.
Thank you, it's very kind words of you. Thank you for having me.
No problem.